joke about a casual joke about Michael Jackson.
Oh, yeah. And how he's not to blame. No, forget that. We need context for that. So this is the second half of quite a long show, which is now at current. This is our review of Series 4, Episode 1.
But hey, now, I think a lot of people want this. We've had 3 weeks off, so let's literally open the floodgates of the content floodgates and filter.
There will be some lovely trout coming down, but there will also be a lot of shit. We've got to put up with all of it. No, this is we always end with this, and we've actually got quite a lot. So before I hear any, thank you for getting in touch.
Well, I want to say thanks as well.
No, but I said it.
Well,
so you can just edit me out.
We've been literally elongated. How do you say that word? That doesn't make any sense. We've got a lot of feedback. We've got a lot of emails.
Yeah. What do we do?
It's always lovely to hear from you all. And incidentally, we put out a call out for the best. We asked people if they'd give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. And the best one would get a mouse mat. And we did post the winner on our Twitter. So please, if you are listening to this, get in touch and promise we will send you a mouse mat. Gary, they never got in touch with us, Gary, but you still owe me £7 for our Zoom license. So I'll let you finance the whole the package and delivery and customization of the mouse mat.
Remind you of on my own back the mouse mat that I sent as a prize to one of our live streams.
£7.
No, I don't. I said to you don't have to share that. So yes,
don't worry, it's all right. Thanks very much.
What if I transfer you £7 and do nothing from now? Would that be easy?
Well, hey, we got a lot of lovely reviews, so please continue to support us on the podcast. However it is, rate, review, subscribe. That's one thing that you can do. You can also buy us a coffee on Ko-fi, and you can also subscribe to Patreon for loads of
ledger. Just so
I absolutely will. So this is from Rob on Apple Podcasts. He gave us a 3-star review. Gary.
I know about this.
I've stuck with this podcast throughout their review of Series 2, and it's been more of a struggle than a pleasure. It's good, isn't it?
I really want to say something, but
no, I love all feedback, good and bad, and actually I go through quite a vigorous QA process of our podcast because we want it to make it as good as it possibly can be.
No, we don't get bad.
We don't actually. No. Anyway, he goes
on. He did give 3 stars, so it's not
3 stars. It's food for thought. I must give them credit for producing a podcast on such a niche subject. They've clearly listened to the shows hundreds of times, which is a good and a bad thing. They could do so much more around the time and space these shows are broadcasted and the changes of Carl, Steve and Ricky's relationship, which I think we do. We show how their relationship
It's an interesting point, I think, but it's not. I can't say you're wrong, but I feel we've done that, but maybe not enough.
Maybe not enough. The standout episodes and interviews they've done with XFM Carl-related contributors there are measured, funny, and insightful. So thank you. However, their hatred of Ricky makes their review of individual episodes a hard listen at times. Their belief that he now stands as a gateway to the far right is ridiculous and a clear misunderstanding of Ricky's anti-establishment act that still is the core of what he was and is as a performer. I wanted to like this podcast, I really did, but it's time to listen to the rival podcast and see what that's like. This has also helped there not be an episode 1 series 3 on Apple. Well, there is, Rob. If you go to our YouTube, we did actually review that episode, but as a live show.
I don't think he's going to go. Probably.
I don't think so. I think we've lost him.
Go.
I don't even know what rival podcast he's talking about. So it's news to me.
Have studied kangaroo. Yeah, is it from prison? The prison broadcast. Strange ways. No, I can't say it's wrong on the first bit, but I can say it's wrong pretty much on saying we hate Ricky.
But what do you think of his defence, though? Because this is, if we were doing BBC impartiality, he's saying it's part of the Anti-Establishment Act, which is what he is at the core. What do you think of that as a defence?
Some people have a more simplistic way of conceiving something, and some people.
Are you calling Rob stupid?
No, I'm just saying it's just it's more simplistic kind of not to recognise that. I think because it's not clear he's far right. We've never said that, but notice how that gateway works, and to see others people who've been on that journey. It's kind of it's I don't want to sound, but I think it's a more complex way, and it's nuanced because it
is, yeah. And
I think that's lost on him. I think he's one of the people who just see they obsessive with defending.
Well, you want to like Ricky, don't you? And that's lovely too.
And we do. We say, look, we compliment.
Hey, don't have a go at me, mate.
I'm vicariously saying it to him.
Thanks very much.
We give a very balanced view. When it's not positive, we're clear. We never slag off gratuitously. I don't think he just can't see. I see it. It's a sort of. It doesn't exist as something you can touch, but I'm pretty sure that it exists like that. He is a gay. To see that, you have to not be blinded. Like, he's obsessive about Ricky because he hears anything, and he kind of it's not nice, because if you're a fan of Ricky, you might think, and you hear someone say that, you might think, well, I'm not on the far right. Is that saying I am?
We're not saying that.
That's challenging people's views. No, I'm not. Some people are, but I'm not saying it about individuals. No. There are people who like Ricky who are good. You look at people, or I have spent a long time going through. Time after time, there'll be the nastier people, and he isn't, but he attracts that, but at this point, he definitely knows he's doing.
Well, from one Rob to another.
Thanks, downgrade us if you want. After that,
no, don't, absolutely don't. This is from Rob Banks, our Patreon, and he said,
he's going to be nice, isn't he?
Yeah, he's going to be nice. I meant to say, I listened to all of the RSK content in double speed because I know the script so well, and I don't feel like I lose out and gain from the fact that I listen to more. I'm interested to know if I'm the only one, or if there are more weird people like me.
No, someone said it like a few months ago, I'm sure. Do you remember?
It was Rob Banks.
Yeah. Stop going on about it. No, interesting. Never ever thought of doing that with anything.
No, but I can see why you would do that.
Yeah, but it's over twice as quickly. Don't you want it to last the whole hour?
I don't think it's about. I suppose it's just that over familiarity. But I think for me, the joy comes in enjoying them at normal speed rather than just rushing through them. But I can totally understand the reason for it.
You sound like a cartoon. In double speed, you go higher, and it just would sound weird. Like, I've never thought of doing that, Rob, but I will do that for the next week with everything, which is nothing.
People might be listening to this episode on double speed, so we should talk really slowly so it balances out.
Do you know what? Put it on triple speed. Get it done sooner.
This is from Alan White.
I like that, Rob, though. Good, nice point.
Enjoying the podcast and that. Been listening to RSK since the Guardian podcast started. Found the XFM shows and went from there. I was quite an active member on the Pilkopedia around 2007, 8 and 9, having a lot of time on my hands, both being a student and clinically fed up. Bless you, Alan. Alan's got some very interesting points, actually, and I would like to get Alan actually on the show because he goes on.
Consider me.
Well, maybe. I'll be on. See how well this goes. They were pretty interesting times to be a fan of RSK. I remember when what is now called Series 0 was uploaded out of the blue by someone calling themselves Jesup, which is funny. That's Ricky's character for an investigative detective. Think that was also the time a lot of fans turned against Ricky. Relations had been pretty good before then, but he seemed to turn. He decided to claim copyright of the XFM shows. Maybe he just got the rights from the station. And rather than asking Pilkopedia to remove them, he got his mate Glyn to shut the website down. He also edited a screenshot of the Pilkopedia forum to demonstrate how fans who were criticising his outfit were actually doing so out of some competitive desire to seem edgy and arch rather than having valid opinions. I think this might have been a key point for Ricky, as his explosion into true superstardom coincided with the first instance of his work not being met with ubiquitous praise for the first time since The Office Series 1 aired. At this point, he could have taken the valid criticism on board, challenged himself and improved, maybe by working with people who had different ideas. Instead, he chose to dismiss the negative comments, stick in his comfort zone, surround himself with yes men, and churn out repetitive work aimed solely for the section of fans who continued to declare his genius.
That's very good.
Very interesting trivia around the copyright of the XFM shows. We've never had correspondence like that, and it's interesting to have that insight because previously Gary and I had reached out to Radio X about perhaps using some of like the clips on our podcast, but we found out that Ricky actually owned the copyright. And do you remember when he did
someone got to Emma Thompson, agent?
That's right.
Somehow it got to Emma Thompson. We were contacted for this. They still said no, and then they said, "Oh no, it's someone in France."
But I guess from what Alan's saying, the rights remain with Ricky.
It's an ambiguous thing. I think that Ricky, they told us that Ricky owns the rights. Ricky swears that he doesn't. Or if anything that happens with them being taken down, he was so adamant on Twitter because something coincided. Do you remember something was taken down just as something came out?
There was, loads of people had taken the shows off Spotify. Do you remember we spoke about this when we were in Brighton at that pub?
But there was something that related to Ricky that had happened that made it seem more like a coincidence, like he'd done it. And I thought he'd done it, but reading what he put, because he would dip into like the small people, like us, like having a conversation, which he rarely does. And what he put was quite convincing. Like, I just don't think he'd lie about it. It's
a weird thing to lie about. I think he claims ignorance, and actually he's got a big army of PR people around him. Because and this is another thing. We've talked a lot about comedy offence in light of the Supernature dropping on Netflix. But if he really had nothing to show, then why wouldn't you celebrate the XFM shows? Because I tell you what, stuff on that show is more edgy and offensive than anything he's saying now.
Yeah, well, it's the same thing, but it's much funnier when it's just unplanned and just happened, as he does. And he is a genius at that. And XFM is. But yeah, it's kind of, touches on things we've been saying. That's the thing I would say. That was a good point about what we were saying earlier. It's not that who he offends, which is annoying, and he does it without understanding humour. It's the fact he can't take it back. Like if someone gives it back to, I don't just mean a heckler, but someone like he gets really defensive, and it reminds me of like just Carl saying that he likes Lowry's, because Ricky gets defensive at that. Like it's rare, but when his intellect is challenged, like or something knowledge about science, he hates it. He doesn't like it, and that's kind of how he is now. But just pure, he's taken out the comedy from the XFM. Just kept the offence, done it planned, so it's less funny. So it's all the offence at plus more, and equally as fragile.
And it makes him less likeable as a result of it, whereas he is immensely likeable in those early days, isn't he?
Yeah. But I'd always say like he would be a really annoying person to be with, like genuinely. But Johnny Vaughan, I love, he would, and he says it about himself, and most annoying man in the world. But yes, they're geniuses. Alan put it interestingly, because he's kind of put a time on it. He thinks it kind of happened around then, whereas I would have put it later. I think until when he did On the Road.
Life on the road, don't need a heavy load.
Yeah, the songs are great, but
songs are good.
No, that's when
the song he did about Slough.
No, it's interesting to think 2007.
Well, Alan goes on. I thought that everything that could be said about the XFM shows would have been said on Pilkopedia back in the day. E.g., what was the shed story? And can you have an animated JPEG? I brought that up, didn't I? I said it's a GIF, not a JPEG. But you managed to bring fresh takes and interesting insights. Might see you at Edinburgh if you make it up. Have you thought about doing, this is interesting, have you thought about redoing the first half of Series 2? Now you have more of an idea of what you were doing and a handful of listeners to contribute. Yeah. You're the soundest podcast in the area. I don't like all the stuff you say, but you're actually doing what... doing what's there. You keep doing, you keep going, persevere, and it's worth listening to. Anyway, okay.
Cheers, Alan. You really read that as you read that one. Yeah, that's kind of... I'll take that. I'll take it.
Yeah. We will see you in Edinburgh. Can I just say that?
That's very like 2007. I'm trying to piece that back in my mind. That's very interesting. No one's ever made a point like that. I should think about that further, Alan, and report back next week.
This one's from Liam Barker. All right, boys. I was really happy to hear my email read out on the last episode of your show. I was genuinely sitting there. I was genuinely sitting there with the biggest grin, so thank you for that. Gary gave the question, how long does it take to get me through the XFM shows, the guide tos and the podcasts? And honestly, I don't know. When I would put it on before I go to sleep, I make sure to set the timer for 45 minutes before it turns off so I don't miss out on too much, but still have enough time to listen to before I sleep. I actually have my own plan to remaster the shows to fix the audio levels, especially in the earlier shows we can where you can't hear Carl without turning the volume up, but then need to turn it down again because of Ricky inhaling the mic when he laughs. If I ever get round to it, I will send you a link to download them, and maybe you can share it with the listeners who have been wanting a remaster as well. Well, can I say, Liam, do check out our Twitter page, because there is actually a gentleman who is currently in the process of remastering the shows. He's done 1 to 3 so far. I always retweet them and urge you to, I don't know, YouTube convert them and remaster your whole collection, so you don't actually need to do it. He goes on
remaster our shows. Could you, before I got a microphone?
could you edit our shows as well?
Yeah.
I also listened to a couple of other audiobooks shows that I think you would like, which are
James. Dare you? Other than us.
How dare you? Which are James Acaster's Classic Scrapes and Down the Line. And actually, I can recommend both those because I have downloaded Classic Scrapes, which is James Acaster used to come on Josh Widdicombe's show on Radio X, and he'd do these. He's got absolutely insane anecdotes, and they're very funny.
Okay, yeah,
and down the line is from the people who did the Far Show, or a lot of the same people who did the Far Show, and it's like a spoof phone-in talk show. And I've only listened to a bit of it, Liam, but have to say I'm really, really enjoying it, and definitely going to listen to more of it. As he said, in my
recommended well, not that one, but a different James Acaster podcast before we. Just to me off air.
Well, it's James Acaster and Ed Gamble does this podcast called Off Menu, and Harry Hill was a guest on it, and it's like Desert Island starter, main and dessert. They have great guests, and you'd like it, Gary, just because it's got Harry Hill, and I can thoroughly recommend that. It's very funny.
I'd say James Acaster, the biggest compliment I can pay him is that he is the first really different, like I'd say he's the first of his, like there'll be more like him in 10, 20 years, but he's different enough from other comedians that make him Google's gone off. His Google's went off. I don't know. I thought I needed assistance, and I do.
You do.
Yeah. No, but James Acaster is different. Do you not think that he's not like other people?
Well, he does. There was
respect that.
Once Supernature was released on Netflix, there was the clips that always resurface. Is James Acaster, yes, and the Nish Kumar one, and also Frankie Boyle does a bit about Ricky Gervais, and they're both very critical of the way that he targets trans people.
I just loved my favourite thing that Frankie Boyle says.
Stop kicking the table.
Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry. He says, like, I can't remember how he puts it. He's like, why do you keep going on about the animals? What have you done to people? Yeah. Like, if you're so like obsessed about, no, I treat animals brilliantly. Like, hang on. Yeah, who have you got?
Really like the animals.
Like, you really like the animals, but you're not mentioning people so much. Have you done something terrible? Which he hasn't, of course. But
no.
Frankie Boyle did that well. And James Acaster, that bit he does on Ricky Gervais isn't. It seems old because it's so. It's not. It's
from the Cold Lasagna, Hate Myself 1999, which is you're into your comedy, and I know you don't watch enough modern comedy, but you would fucking love that, Gary.
I will check it out in a couple of years, maybe. As we're on a train, you can show it to me next to each other. Yeah. Book seats next to each other. I don't want
you don't like
that, so awkward being next to you. I don't mind being very close to you, but
yeah. Liam goes on. He says, "As I said in my last email,
I think finished his email. So sorry.
Sorry. As I said in my last email, I think Steve is extremely underrated, and I would like to put the question to you both: if you had 3 top Steve moments, what would they be and why? As usual, keep up the fantastic work. Thanks, Liam. What would your top 3 Steve moments be?
One that comes to mind is unusually it's from the podcasts. I can't remember which one, and he's talking about.
Who are you, Bruce Forsyth?
Bruce Forsyth. No, it was when he's queuing up to get into a nightclub.
Yeah, it's that one.
That is brilliant, and I've always said actually, and you say he's underrated, Liam. I agree with you. People would probably put him last out of their favourite people on the show, but he is vital to it. He's very good at telling an anecdote about his childhood or something that's happened to him. Carl has had the weirdest stuff happen, but Steve is, I've noticed that, little stories. Steve isn't as good as going into an ad-lib as Ricky is. Like, Ricky's a master at that. But anything that real, like buying the laptop story, I love it.
That's one of my favourite stories.
Such a little, it's a laptop, getting into a nightclub.
The Bond stories. I love it when he talks about Bond films.
Yeah, he speaks like very real, like you can imagine it. Whereas Carl's stuff's too ridiculous. And Ricky's sort of too high level, like tries to look down, and it's about religion and things. Whereas Steve kind of just
it's the media, isn't he?
Thing. Yeah, and he's perfect at putting in just the right sort of self-deprecation.
Yeah, I think he's definitely, out of all of them, I probably resonate with him the most. Both his his lack of success with the women.
You're 5'9", mate. You know?
But
I mean?
also, just it can't be easy to live in somewhere shadows. I think he was perfectly content with it. But
No.
he did enable a lot of Ricky's behaviour. But then you respect that too, because he never sought fame and fortune in the same way that Ricky did.
I disagree. I think he was seeking fame and fortune more than Ricky was.
Really?
He just didn't get it. Like, it wasn't. He did brilliantly. Like, I'll forgive anything. I don't think he enabled Ricky's behaviour. That's like saying Ricky's behaviour was really bad, but he earned sort of.
Well, if not that, then I think Steve knew his place in that relationship.
Yeah, he was quite happy to joke about it, but I do believe they did actually have that conversation, and we would say, like, you are not going to be earning as much as me, literally almost like that. But,
in a brothel.
But Steve's, then he was on extras. So I think he definitely enjoys fame. He says he's in it for the money. He's got both. And I kind of feel, he's earned it.
And his series 2 of The Outlaws is coming on the BBC iPlayer. June, they filmed back to back, so that's coming out very, very soon.
Very well received compared to Afterlife. I think we did a poll.
And also, if you want to go and check out our review of the first series of The Outlaws, do go over to Patreon for loads more bonus content.
Yeah. We're on a 25th hour of recording now, I think.
It's all right. We've got a few more emails, then you can have a lie down.
The sun's coming up. No, I'm joking. Can I just say, going back to Alan's, because he made a point about going back to Series 2 but having some listeners on. It's a really good idea. I wouldn't quite do it like that, perhaps, but, we would maybe have about Series 2 in general and have some listeners on. I like the idea of revisiting a series and doing it with listeners. So it's a good idea. We should do it slightly different.
Definitely. And this next one is from Selby.
And thank you, Liam. I'm going backwards. I'm doing too many. Thank you, Liam, before.
This one's from Selby Emmanuel. Gary and Miles, only found your podcast 3 weeks ago when searching on Spotify for RSK related stuff. Good on you for that, because our title could not be worse for SEO optimization and Google search rankings. It's one of the lowest ranked things. We never focus groups like Rishi Sunak. That's sort of topical, that is. Apologies for the long email, but I've held off as I wanted to catch up with all your episodes first. I have now done this to the possible permanent detriment of my relationships with my wife and son. They still count towards the rage jar.
That's what I would have wanted, when you started out to do this. No, it's lovely to hear someone who's only recently found us as well. It shows we aren't findable.
We are. You just really got to dig through the dirt.
You're the only one.
Your thoughts are always entertaining and often profound, and not just on RSK. It's been a privilege to listen. Gary's comments.
Did you email that other bloke?
Rob. 3-star. Gary's comments on current affairs and politics are spot on. I could have done with hearing his thoughts on lockdown at the time. Gary, quick thoughts on lockdown at the time.
We did do lockdown. Yeah, I agree with it. we did talk about it at the time.
We did. We did a lot of our shows under lockdown.
We interviewed quite a few people during lockdown. So it's always first start with how you doing. You're right. Like, that's the beginning of a conversation. That became the beginning.
And I feel Miles has developed quite the radio voice. BBC Six Music surely beckons.
Excuse me.
I hope so.
How dare you
just saying.
Single out Mars, even though you just singled out.
It's all I've got, Gary.
Look, I know.
It's all I've got. I've got no interesting thoughts and opinions or stories. That's what you bring to this affair.
Is face. Always be the face, because I could recognise. Mars has more. I've got.
I think you've got quite a recognise. My girlfriend did say, "Oh, can you just tell Gary? She's from Poland. Right. Can you just tell Gary? It just needs to trim that beard."
Yeah. I see. I like it. Like this. That's the point, because I can't be bothered to shave.
It is a risky business, shaving as well, especially when it's that long, because it could go horribly wrong.
I've never shaved hair this long. The grade, you've got.
Yeah, what grade do you use? What grade?
No, I'm much longer than the longest grade, so I can't trim it using that. I do sometimes touch around the edges, but the danger of that is you get bit too much there, and then
I know that's what I'm saying. It's a risky business.
Walk away. Got a very good
I get this with the tash though, and I'm like, one wrong move,
but
this tash is gone.
I couldn't grow that. You grow that.
You've got a tash?
No, I've got. Yeah, it's there. It's like some men have that much here. I've got some, but yours is much.
I have to say, I do quite like you without the beard as well, because there's certain charming about your baby face.
Oh,
it's quite nice.
Ralph Harris has a beard. What's he ever done? Do you know what I mean? No,
he said.
I do look a bit like.
Selby goes on. The library is a real treat too. Do you remember that when we did the D Trout Spinners library, where we slept to the song each week, and you got bored of it?
Oh no! I think we stopped it, and then someone said, "Why have you stopped it?" We started it again, and someone said, "Why are you doing that?" And we stopped it.
It's because you got bored.
Well, I just checked my iPod. I'm happy to go.
Well, do you know what? Actually, I might pop in the song this week. So bear with us.
Should we do
guys.
One this week? Should we say
let's do one this week.
Let's do one. We can do one.
Let's do one. We can do everything what
it will be.
The dedication and commitment plus real humour and insight you've brought to this is admirable.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Selby.
Really kind.
For background, I started properly listening to XFM when it went on air permanently in 1997. It felt genuinely cool and alternative. Intimate too. I have to say, I think Selby's our oldest listener in terms of how early he started listening. That's what I mean.
Don't slag him off.
No, I don't mean older. I think he might be older.
Yeah, I mean, yes, he's clearly not 20. No other listeners have said that they listened that early.
97?
No, yeah, that's really early, way before Series 0.
He says, ideal for sad indie snobs like me who like to look down on Radio 1 types. I do concur with you, Selby.
And it was sort of interview with that man. Who was that? Music man.
God, why could you never remember? Matt Everett, I mentioned him earlier.
Yeah, sorry. Matt Everett, listen to our interview of that, because he's a kind of,
he's a muso. And it was sort of charming and shambolic as well. They did indeed do real ads for local tattoo parlours. If you won a competition prize, you'd often have to visit the station to pick it up.
That is really...
And I seem to recall an episode when Gervais spilt beer into the mixing desk. That's so true, because now it would just be like an email confirmation. By the time, it was like literally physical tickets to a gig.
Yeah, because there was email in 1997, but not like you don't.
Rudimentary, wasn't it?
Actually, that's good insight, because if you think like there couldn't have been a more perfect Gervais doing his thing and XFM and them clashing around that time. He's perfect for that. And then him finding Steve and Carl. Like if it was, say, Radio 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, it wouldn't be allowed. It's just the perfect coming together, I think, of station and platform and presenter.
Selby goes on. The initial changes when Capital...
Oh, sorry, no.
Can you stop wiggling your table?
Oh, so sorry.
Stop that.
Sorry.
The initial changes when Capital took over were pretty horrendous, but it had genuinely found its way forward with added professionalism by the time Gervais and Merchant rejoined. I absolutely loved the RSK shows. After they finished, I managed to get hold of all of them and listen to them religiously, so it's great to hear the opinions of fellow obsessive. I gave up on XFM a while ago. The 2015 rebrand under Global Radios to a male-focused Radio X was an unbelievably retrograde move. I know you're interested in demographics, so for background, I'm a male 46-year-old Asian Londoner. If you're ever around in central London, do let me know. I'd be happy to stand you some grub and booze, sparkling Lindauer. I'm not made of money. All the best to yous and yous. I thought your analysis in episode 48 was exceptional. PPPS, he's just signed up to our Patreon now, and he has done. I can confirm the money is in the bank. But no, thank you so much, Selby. I really enjoyed reading your email.
That's lovely. And, thank you.
And thanks for signing up. And I hope you're enjoying the bonus content. And do tell your friends. And I hope your wife and your son, our voices are not impacting the household too much.
So I don't want to be named on a divorce file.
He's bitter.
I actually do. Imagine if I was like, it's lovely, and it's really interesting to hear what it was like actually listening back in 1997. I don't think any of our listeners have ever told us they listened that long ago. So it's
you're in the minority.
Because then like now we'll know it. And you can download it anywhere. But then it was hard to get anywhere outside of London. And even in London, apparently it was crackly. Someone else said that to me. Their audience was about 10,000 max. The fact you were one of them, you should be proud of that. If you are interested, we are going to do Series 0, but we're going to go back to Series 1 after Series 4. We do aim at some point to go show by show through Series 0. You've listened to more, Miles, than I have, but I like it. It's very raw, very different. But just if you're interested.
We'll see if he is.
What did you meant? You brought it up, Selby. No, I'm joking. We will get that.
This one is from Scott Goodall, who is our last email of this week. Hi guys, hope you are well. I binge listened to your podcast from beginning to a few episodes in series 3. I'm saving your current ones up, and I'll do a proper email soon. But I remembered in one of the ones I've listened to, you asked for recommendations of similar things to listen to. Obviously, nothing is similar to that drivel. I've got one for you, which I think you'll really like. I'm re-listening to the Russell Brand shows on Radio 2 on YouTube. Very, very funny, and just as chaotic as Jerv, Smirch, and the Caymans. All the best, guys, and keep up the good work. I've heard Russell Brand shows that he did with Carl. Carl produced a bunch of shows on Radio 2. And there's some good bits in that.
When was it? Was it before the XFM shows?
No. This is after now.
Like 2005, 6, 7,
onwards. No, my main memories of Russell Brand was when he was doing
Big
Brother's Big Mouth which was the E4 bonus show of Big Brother, obviously.
Yeah, this came up. You can't remember this, but he actually, the first series he did that, he had his hair was short, no beard. Like totally different, just this really skinny.
But when he did reinvent his look and he had the back-combed hair, the mad kind of Amy Winehouse kind of bouffant. Oh, Gary, what's Amy Winehouse's favourite tube station?
High
Barnet.
So did you come up with that just then?
That was on Shooting Stars.
I don't think I was going to.
The other Shooting Stars joke. I've got to tell you so. True or false? David Dickens' son.
Yeah, the one I like was when they said, right, name a person with 4 body parts, and no one could get it. And it was toe, knee, hand, cock. And it's kind of like Carl does. And you said toe, knee, hand, cock.
That's very good.
For the first couple of years, when I heard that, maybe I'm stupid. I'm admitting this. Well, I didn't understand the toe and the knee. Like I just thought, what's that? Hand. Okay, it's like hand and cock. I was just an idiot.
And he means the male bird when he says that.
No, I don't.
I remember just really aspiring to be Russell Brand at that age. Like it was like in those early days where it was like 15, 16. Yeah, but he was on the same bar as I am. So
yeah,
it seems ridiculous now because they're two completely different people. But I dressed up as Russell Brand for my 16th birthday.
Did you?
Yeah, and I did. I had I backcombed my hair.
That's no shame.
I wore like women's jeans and stuff, and I was like, I really wanted to be him because I think it's that age where you kind of. And I remember I just walk around school, talking very eloquently and moving lots of extravagant hand gestures. And I was like,
I hope you were doing it with irony, but I fear you weren't.
I kind of wasn't.
Yeah, I don't know. That's what I did.
I genuinely thought I was like, it was just a bit creepy.
Yeah,
like,
he's prat.
Weird now.
We're a bit of a prat. I was into Harry Hill by that age. And also at school, I did impressions of George Dawes.
Yeah.
No, that Russell Brand, I can so imagine you as that. Yeah. And you do have that look about you. If you could grow a beard,
cheers.
He's a good looking guy, but
he is.
You're the face
mask. Well, he's an actor, isn't he? Thank you, Scott. Lovely email.
So nice, and it's so lovely to hear someone binge watch listens to us. It's just, not just listen to one, but like binge watch them. I'm not saying we deserve the Sony at this stage, but just nice.
Release a British Podcast Award bronze. Just to bring it back to the start of what we talked about, obviously, of this marathon episode, is we obviously opened, we talked a lot about Ricky's stand-up, the most recent show, Supernature, and I put out a call out on Twitter to get your views and opinions on. A lot of people were mentioning that Ricky reused a lot of XFM stuff in the show. Apparently they did a bit where he says talking about like nutters in America saying, I was reborn as in past lives 2 Napoleons were there, things that have
the trans stuff as well. Because he's like bloke with a cock or woman with a cock, like he uses the same sort of phrases. I didn't watch it all, but it was very like he took everything that that was offensive from the XFM shows, but nothing that was funny.
Anyway, my question was, I said, here's the thing, what are your thoughts on RSK reusing jokes, quotes, stories from the XFM days in their work and careers nowadays? We got some great feedback from this, but can I just ask you first, Gary, what are your thoughts?
Because I was kind of looking keen there to get it. No, I'd say just generally, I don't mind, it's not plagiarism. And I think it's totally legitimate it's his stuff, maybe, even if it comes from Carl. I think he he should be able to use some of that, but not use it direct and exact. I just happen to think he doesn't use the funny bits and he kind of just takes the offensive bits. That's bad. I don't think it's bad plagiarism. For him, he should be allowed to use that material and talk about it now. It's just boring. He does the worst of it, as a kind of thing. There's nothing wrong with it. It's his. He came up with most of it. Most of the good lines are his, so he should be able to use it. But just don't bother. It's pretty shit.
Well, I got some very good feedback, which
you get another 3-star review from that.
This is from RSK XFM, who says, overall, it makes me realise more and more that the XFM show was truly the pinnacle for them. Steve and Ricky are just off big office success and basically free to do whatever they want with very little responsibility. Then they stumble across Kyle and it's pure magic.
That's what I was saying earlier, like the XFM and Ricky to come together at the same time. And I know it happened before The Office. It was just like the perfect match, even though he got fired. Like, it's the only place that could fire him and would rehire him. There wasn't that much success at the time. They weren't huge. I remember that time. But yeah, it's just a good kind of combination. I'd say The Office is still their pinnacle, but yeah, the XFM show's a close second.
Oliver Robert Jenks, who has signed up to be a patron. If they didn't, I doubt the success that they had post-Office would have been this great. Remember, XFM's initial reach was probably only a few thousand people, but now it has millions of views and downloads. Do they think it's new to us? And to some new fans, it is new material. That is a very important point to bear in mind, the fact that we're obsessive. We list these shows again and again and again. So we're annoyed that it's reused or rehashed because we're just... I'm kind of indifferent. Like, it's just, regardless of how you feel, you do pick up on it because how can you not, right?
Yeah. If he'd done it cleverly, I wouldn't have minded. What I saw wasn't, and that goes for every stand-up show.
Yeah.
Especially the first one, Animals, he's kind of talking, you're going to use some of the same anecdotes. That's fine. I think he does it well in the earlier stand-ups, but yeah, he overdoes it. But they are his.
Steve-O backs up this point. He says, I think people forget they are only human. Think about how many times we've used the same anecdote over and over, albeit only in front of 2 people at best rather than millions. But notwithstanding, we would reference why we talk about it.
We actually reach 4 people a week. This podcast.
I was going to say, Gary, how many times do you repeat your anecdotes?
Well, but they're so fun. It's kind of, it's like addictive, and it's like you're in a little club. Like, I don't know, like, well, I do.
Golf. Do you know what? That is such a legit point, Steve-O, because I do find myself in when I meet people and I meet friends. And I'm like, I genuinely forget like what I have and haven't told people before, and it's just a literally slip of the memory. And it's just
well, we talk anything from me.
Well, yeah, but we talk about everything and nothing as well. So, yeah, I didn't know you had a second card. But no, but this is what I mean. You they are only human, right?
That's a really good point. I think I've never put it like that, but yeah, I think we underestimate just how hard. It's kind of easy because they kind of didn't try, but to come up with that is fucking hard. Like to do that, and even though the quality declines, what can you expect? I don't kind of think bad of them because the podcasts are not up to the standard of XFM. I just think they play on, swearing and things that aren't that clever, but I'd never hold them to that standard because it's no one else created.
And I don't think anyone, I was excited for the Outlaws, but under no circumstance was I thinking, oh, this is going to be like the XFM shows, because nothing can be, right?
No, of course. Do you reckon there's a fan podcast like this about any other radio show that happened? I wouldn't even want to draw attention to any potential rival podcast. No, they're doing the one about what we're doing, but I'm saying about another radio show.
I would love to do a fan podcast about the Adam and Joe shows.
I don't.
No, but I would.
I'm just being clear at the early,
I think we've carved out a niche here for ourselves, Gary. Like, we're just going to review. I don't know. Maybe we'll do the day-to-day. We could do that. We could do Mitch and Webb Look. We could review that.
Of course, I'm not saying we should do these. It's just I don't think a radio show has got such a cult following.
I agree with you there.
That's 100%. Nothing. Not to say any quality that we add, because we don't. If you've listened to today, you know that. But there is a fan podcast, and we are doing this. I don't I can't think of any radio show that only lasted sort of 2 or 3 years has a fan podcast about it.
Yeah,
that
I
happened
agree.
20 years ago. Yes.
Case point.
They're only human. And it's fantastic what they do.
Jake says, I like the fact that they use it and shows what an impact and impression the podcast had on them. I think that's a wonderful point to make, because it does serve as like little Easter eggs. When you spot these things, you think you're the only one, and you go, oh no, there are others.
No, because Ricky had done stand-up at that time, but when you do try and write stand-up, it's a tiny little bit without playing the O2 that I have done, it's to go on a couple of gigs. You do think back to things like conversations that you might have had that are particularly funny, and kind of, you can take that material. I think it's fine. He just doesn't do it well. But it's his stuff. It's good. As long as he didn't say literally do something
verbatim.
And totally, it was definitely what Steve said, and he totally doesn't give credit, or even if he just said it was a mate or something.
Is my captain playing? Says, I think when they reuse it in the XFM stuff, it felt like three mates chatting shit and either not knowing they told it or telling it again like friends do. Now I think we've all got taken the piss out of. Joe B says, I'm really torn. In one way, I feel a bit disappointed that when I tune in to see a new show, old references and jokes appear, which leaves me a bit cold. On the other hand, it's a thrill that's a link back to the early days and gives me hope they have fond memories.
Is he talking about tuning into the stand-up, Ricky's stand-up now?
I think just any shows, stand-up, whatever it is.
That's a good point, but remembering kind of that standard is so hard to achieve that you can never hold them to that. Like The Office, visually, I'd never hold them to that, but there is a standard.
But it's lovely. I do agree with Joe B, though. On the other hand, it's a little through that the link back to the early days, because so much of, I think we as listeners are frustrated because we obviously want them to produce another XFM, which they never will.
No.
But what's really lovely is that they hold them in high esteem and they remember them because we remember them.
Yeah.
So you would hope that the three people responsible for perhaps, the finest period of their collective careers, that they look back and they go, yeah, we did these shows. Yeah, they were nothing at the time. But actually, they've had a really big influence. They help people with their mental health, with their sleep, their depression, whatever it is. But it's what a wonderful thing to have gifted people.
I think all for different reasons. They've all kind of, not disavowed it like it didn't happen. They've all kind of moved away from it. For different reason, each one, and I can understand. It's like they probably can't remember it, like especially Steve. They know there was naughty stuff, but they can't remember what. We know what it is because we know it so well, but he just remembers there's naughty stuff, so he wouldn't want that to kind of come out and him to be his career to be ruined. Ricky's kind of, I think one of the reasons Ricky's gone in this way that he's gone kind of like cancel culture, and he makes such a big thing of it, is because he knows that those shows are out there now, because he's got the audience who would not care about the offence. They would stay with him. In fact, he would grow. His audience would grow if someone came out of shows and sort of tried to cancel him.
That's 100%
so he has put himself in that position, I think, because he knows that they're out there, and he's always known that he's out there. I think that's part of it. There's more reasons, but that's one part of it.
I'll just do a couple more of these. Alex Apati says, RSK have the right to reuse the material because it's their material, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's right if they do. I watched some of the latest RG special and just felt a bit cheated on because I knew what was coming a couple of times inside the opening 10 minutes.
I think,
but he does. Oh, just to back it up, he says, I imagine we would be a minority in his audience nowadays, though. So it's completely new material to the majority's ear. Also, I suppose it's not his fault if we happen to have consumed everything they have created for radio 10 years times over, and therefore know it all by heart. Yeah, I think that is very true.
That's what I was trying to say earlier, but that's made better. Very good way of putting it. It's not funny to us, but it's so valid to do because he's playing to audiences. Like if you take everyone who watches him on a tour, the vast majority won't know the XFM quotes. So I understand why he's going to use it back. But it's just that he doesn't do it in a funny way, to me. And he should have the right to.
And just a couple of last ones. Richard O says, I have no issue with it.
My teeth.
So we're nearly done. I have no issue with it. I don't think there's an artist performer out there who doesn't have a reoccurring motif of some kind in their work. It's a byproduct of their experiences, and I think it's actually quite sweet when I hear a joke from the XFM days being referenced or reused. And Endless Mike finishes up by saying, I think we can feel precious about it because we feel like members of a special XFM club and these are our jokes and stories. It's not necessarily the right reaction to get annoyed, but understandable.
We feel ownership, but it's kind of not. It's not for us. It just happens that we consume it so much. Like no one who's doing it in the media or arts or anything has people so obsessed with work they did 20 years ago that they couldn't reuse it. So, although I guess singers, once you've got a song, you don't kind of do that song again.
But you do, but you do have purists. Yeah, but you have purists, some people who go, how dare you cover that song, like Jeff Buckley's Hallelujah or something, and you can get these songs are very, very famous, but some people hate
Perfect
it when
Day.
Artists that's another. How many times has that been covered?
Yeah, but Oasis is so like big and important to me, but really it's just the first 2 albums. After that, I'm nothing. There's a couple of good tracks per album, and I'm happy to sort of say that. It doesn't mean I don't like them as much. I do.
No.
And I if I ever see Liam tweet, I'm right in there, and he ignores it. But yeah, it's kind of. It really is the first 2 albums. But what do you expect? I mean, they're so good that I understand. It's okay that you didn't do a third one. That's great. I love you anyway.
Anyway, I'm going to wrap this up because I'm bored of talking to you, mate.
And then you can say that this time, and it'd be. There's no quarrel from me. That's correct.
Because we've been talking. We have been waffling for ages, but
I know.
guys,
I'm sorry.
No. Look,
but I've enjoyed it.
Me too. We haven't done this for ages, so it's nice to be back.
Get energy because I've been just literally in bed because I'm so ill. I'm really joking.
But listen, and we're gonna be putting out episodes much more regularly now, guys. Yeah. We've overcome the worst of it. Ooh. Gary's recovered from COVID. My much more serious health concerns are currently in progress, and we really hope to be with you on a more consistent basis to see you through the entire of Series 4.
No, that's very true, and I'm only joking about my health. I'm doing it like from the other way, so I hope it's clear that I'm saying that yours is more serious.
Before we wrap up, though, and you teased it earlier, would you like to put a song into the D Trout Spinners library?
Actually, but I did suggest it, so I think
you did. You got to stick to your word.
Can I? I've put "Love Shine a Light." I mean, that would be relevant. This topical.
For what?
"Love Shine a Light."
For what?
Katrina and the Waves. It was our Eurovision entry when we won it.
Oh, we haven't done Eurovision though. We haven't talked about Eurovision. It's good, wasn't it? It's good. Do you know what? No, Gary, you can put "Love Shine a Light" in. You haven't put it in before.
I'm stunned that I haven't. Do you remember that week where I put something in and literally
you didn't even like it?
It was the week before that I'd put it in and I'd forgotten. I worry. Why am I forgetting these things? Just go.
Know. We have been talking a long time. So you're going to put in "Love Shine a Light." What am I going to put in? Okay, so I went to...
Just a 5-minute discussion about what you're going to hear now to make... Yeah.
Okay, guys, I'm going to put in a song from a music artist that I saw quite recently. I don't go to many gigs these days, but I went to a gig with my girlfriend and her sister and my mother-in-law, I guess that's what you can call her, and it was at the London Coco, and she's an artist called Henia Rani, and she's a Polish composer / pianist. Her music is just unbelievable. It's out of this world, and it's just so beautiful, and it's just you just melt when you listen.
He wants brownie points. He wants
I do.
Girlfriend. He really
so the
does.
song is called Eden. It's got no lyrics, but it's just a beautiful concerto.
Okay. Incidentally, she isn't your mother-in-law. Not in law. Not in legal terms.
That's a joke.
Don't get married because you don't want to do the speech.
I can't wait for you to do my speech. That's the only reason I'm getting married. In a way.
I'm planning it already. Sometimes I think of little lines I could put in.
I'd love it.
In my memory
just
bank.
A whole 4 minutes dedicated to me.
Give me a couple of years, please.
All right. Well, guys, thank you for bearing with us, and I hope you've enjoyed these last 2 episodes. Anyway, lovely.
I'm kicking the thing again. I've just noticed. Forgot about that. I do that.
Can I just say, I'm loving this newfound optimism and bubbly vibes that you're giving off. Can we have more of this, please?
No. I started taking Ritalin. I think that's
is that what it is?
No,
okay.
I did, yeah.
Maybe I should take some of that.
Yeah. Or crack.
More all right,
but
guys.
I'm not happy. I'm just active.
He's alive, and that's the best that we can hope for at this stage.
And now you shall end the show with your next sentence.
Goodbye.
Jeez. So sorry, everyone.